A serene yet eerie forest scene. Tall, leafless trees dominate the landscape, their dark, twisted trunks and branches starkly contrasting against the lighter background. The forest floor is lightly covered with snow, and a narrow, winding stream cuts through the scene, reflecting the silhouettes of the trees. The atmosphere is misty and mysterious, with a sense of depth and distance created by the fading clarity of the trees as they recede into the background. The overall mood is haunting and tranquil, evoking a sense of quiet isolation. Meet Mr. Dominic Greenwood, standing solemnly in a dark, gloomy setting. He has white hair and a beard, and is dressed in a long, black overcoat. He holds a cane, indicating frailty or dependence on the cane for support. Mr. Greenwood is a wealthy businessman who gained his fortune through a Faustian bargain, selling his soul to the devil. The time has come for him to pay the price for his ill-gotten wealth, and he is aware of this fate. A somber and intense portrayal of a man facing the consequences of his past actions. Mr. Greenwood stood at the edge of the somber, ancient wood, his cane tapping the earth with each tentative step. The wind whispered through the twisted branches, carrying with it the scent of decaying leaves and an ominous chill. It had been nearly 50 years since he had set foot in these woods, and tonight, the debt he owed would come due. In his youth, Mr. Greenwood had been a desperate man. Faced with insurmountable poverty, he had struck a deal with the devil himself. Wealth and power in exchange for his soul, when he reached his 80th year. That year had come, and the time was nigh. As he walked deeper into the woods, the towering trees seemed to close in around him, creating a claustrophobic tunnel of gnarled branches and shadow. He approached an old, crumbling church that stood amidst the gloom, its once proud spire now broken and twisted like the fingers of a gnarled hand reaching towards a stormy sky. The churchyard was littered with ancient gravestones, crooked and covered in moss, leaning over as if whispering secrets long forgotten. A chill ran down his spine as he noticed the faint scent of sulfur in the air, mixing with the damp earthiness of the forest floor. The whole scene exuded an eerie, forsaken atmosphere, heightened by the distant echo of a crow's caw. A low growl echoed from the shadows, sending a shiver through the still air. Mr. Greenwood turned sharply to face the source of the noise. From the dense darkness of the forest, the first of 4 demons emerged, heralding a palpable sense of dread. It was Balthazar, a hulking figure whose skin was as dark as the night itself, stretched taut over his massive bones. His eyes burned with a hellish fire, casting an eerie glow that illuminated the ground before him. The trees seemed to recoil at his presence, and the air grew thick with the scent of brimstone. Mr. Greenwood, Balthazar rumbled, his voice like gravel. Your time has come. Are you prepared to pay your debt? Mr. Greenwood swallowed hard but nodded. I am. Lead the way. Balthazar sneered and gestured toward the church. As they approached the entrance, another demon appeared, Azazel, a lithe, serpentine creature with scales that shimmered in the moonlight. Welcome, Greenwood, Azazel hissed. It's been so long since we've last met. Do you remember our pact? How could I forget? Greenwood replied, his voice trembling slightly. I remember all too well. Azazel's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Good. Then let us proceed. Inside the church, the air was thick with the scent of incense mingled with decay, creating an oppressive cloak that seemed to weigh down every breath. Blood flowed from the cracks in the ancient stone floor, pooling ominously at their feet. As Mr. Greenwood stepped through the crimson liquid, the sticky fluid clung to his shoes, a macabre reminder of the horror surrounding him. His heart pounded furiously in his chest, each beat echoing in the silence of the forsaken sanctuary. With every step, the shadows seemed to move, whispering secrets of the damned, drawing him inexorably closer to his chilling fate. At the altar stood the third demon, Lilith, a tall, elegant figure draped in shadows. Her wings, vast and made of black feathers, rustled softly with each movement, sending whispers through the stale air of the church. Her eyes, as cold as the grave, fixed on Mr. Greenwood with a gaze that pierced through the gloom. She regarded him with a chilling mix of pity and disdain. "You knew this day would come, Greenwood." Lilith's voice was soft yet carried an ominous weight that resonated in the hollow space. "Did you ever regret your choice?" "Every day," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, as his eyes did not dare meet hers. "But regret changes nothing." Lilith nodded slowly, the slight movement seeming to stir the air itself. "Indeed. The path you chose was one of your own making." Her tone was final, echoing the inevitable conclusion that awaited him. A sudden, harsh cackle shattered the silence, reverberating through the ancient church as the fourth demon appeared, Asmodeus, a grotesque, twisted figure whose face seemed to shift and morph, reflecting the deepest fears of all who dared look upon him. "Welcome, old man!" Asmodeus cried out, his voice grating like the clash of iron, as he clapped his misshapen hands together with glee. "It's time for the grand finale." Mr. Greenwood took a deep, shuddering breath and steadied himself against the weight of his dread. "I'm ready," he declared, though his voice faltered with palpable fear. The demons led him outside to a gnarled, ancient tree at the edge of the churchyard. Its branches twisted and writhed as if alive, the bark groaning under the strain of unseen forces, and the ground beneath it was soaked with dark, coagulated blood. "This is the tree of your fate," Balthazar intoned solemnly. "It will consume you, body and soul, and thus your debt will be paid." Greenwood stepped forward, the tree's dark energy pulling at the very essence of his being. He reached out a trembling hand, his fingers brushing the cold, pulsing bark. The tree reacted instantly, its branches snapping around him like the coils of a serpent, pulling him into its suffocating embrace. As he was drawn deeper into the tree, the last thing Greenwood saw were the faces of the demons, a ghastly tableau of triumph and grim satisfaction. He felt a searing pain as the tree's roots burrowed into his flesh, and then a merciful darkness swept over him, silencing his agony. The ancient woods grew silent once more, the only sound the faint, mournful whisper of the wind through the trees. The church stood as a silent sentinel, a grim reminder of the pact that had been sealed and the soul that had been claimed. And deep within the heart of the demonic tree, Mr. Greenwood's soul would remain for all eternity, a haunting testament to the price of his boundless ambition.